This week in businesses, markets focus on oil prices, U.S. bank earnings, cocoa prices, and the artificial intelligence workshop hosted by Nigeria's Digital Economy Ministry. Here is Arise business correspondent Rotus Odiri.
Good Monday morning to the morning show crew. A good Monday morning to all our viewers out there. We begin with Iran. Iran is looking for global acknowledgement with the missile attack on Israel. Iran actually reminds me of Roman Reigns. I don't know if you've been watching the WWE. We had WrestleMania 40 on April the 6th. Roman Reigns lost his title to Cody Rhodes, who is of course the son of the legend Dusty Rhodes. But whenever Roman Reigns comes to the ring, he says to the crowd, "Acknowledge me."
Acknowledge me!
That's right. Acknowledge me. Iran wanted acknowledgement for what happened on April the 1st. Allegedly, it was Israel. Israel has neither confirmed nor denied what happened. But those missile attacks that we saw, 10 of those missiles that were shot into Israel territory. About 107 or is it 103 were shot down. About 7 of them made it through. But the allies of Israel helped out. The US, the UK, even Jordan. Jordan shot down some drones as well. Remember, it was ballistic missiles and also drones that were shot there. But Israel, or rather Iran, telegraphed this attack. They said it was coming. So Israel had enough time, because of how slow the drones were moving, to shoot all of them down. So now what's going to happen with oil prices? Oil prices, it is pretty much anyone's guess. As of Friday, you had Brent crude at $90.45 a barrel. It actually touched a high of 92. It's anyone's guess where oil is going to settle at today, because we know that the Security Council over in Israel are meeting and they are divided on what to do. President Biden has already told Netanyahu the U.S. will not will not do any counter offensive with you. So right now we're pretty much in sort of a limbo. If Israel decides to reply, then you might see oil prices spike further. You might still see, traders being jittery as what could happen next. But as far as oil prices are concerned, it all depends on what happens next. But the U.S. is even the UK is telling Israel, call it a draw. It was that alleged attack on April the 1st. You've now had the reply from Iran. Let it be. Let sleeping dogs lie. But we'll have to see. Netanyahu famously likes to get the last word when it comes to these things. We'll see what happens. The Middle Eastern markets, if we take a look at the Middle Eastern markets, they trade on Sundays as well. The TA 125, that's an index over in Israel. That was a bit volatile, but it ended up by 31 basis points. The ISX main 60, that's in Iran. Iran, we saw a bit of a sell-off as far as the currency is concerned on some stocks, but it's still closed up. The Tadawul all-share index over in Saudi Arabia down by 30 basis points. The Dubai financial markets general index down by 6 basis points, and then you got the Bahrain all-share index up by 90 basis points. So we didn't see that much volatility over in Middle Eastern markets. So that, could carry over through to the other markets when, the US, Europe, and so on open up. But it's going to be oil we'll be looking at, and we're generally seeing how markets react. But based on what we're seeing with the minor volatility in the Middle East, perhaps the fact that Iran telegraphed this attack and they sort of just wanted to send a message, they wanted that global acknowledgement, maybe markets won't be that volatile, but we'll see how things play out as the week progresses. So that's what's been happening over in the Middle East. We go to the United States. The big banks have been reporting their earnings. On Friday, we saw JP Morgan releasing its Q1 earnings, revenue coming in 8% high, $42.5 billion. Earnings per share beating estimates, $4.44. Estimates of $4 10. Net income coming in 6% higher, 13.4 billion. However, JP Morgan shares fell, even though they had a good Q1. And why is that? It's because of the forward guidance they gave on their net interest income, basically at $9 billion. There was no change from the fourth quarter of last year. The markets were expecting 11, maybe 12, 13 billion. So as a result of that, JP Morgan shares fell. Next up, and of course, JP Morgan, the biggest bank in the United States based on assets. We go to Citigroup. Citigroup, of course, the fourth largest bank in the US based on assets. Now you can see that their revenue fell 2%. Earnings per share did beat, coming in at $1.86. The streets was expecting $1.23. Net income fell 25%, but despite that, even with net income falling by 25%, Citigroup shares still climbed because Jane Fraser, the female CEO, has been going through carrying out a restructuring plan over at Citigroup, trying to trim the fat. And essentially, the markets liked what she's done so far, and they basically priced this in. In fact, the 25% fall was, a lot less than what the market's pricing. So Citigroup shares still climbed. And then Wells Fargo also reporting their earnings as well. Net income falling about 8% there. As you can see, earnings per share for JP Morgan, earnings per share for Citigroup, earnings per share for Wells Fargo, all beating estimates. Revenue coming in just a bit flat, about 1% higher at 20.9 billion. This week, we're going to see earnings from Morgan Stanley, Bank of America, and the big G, Goldman Sachs. So we'll review those numbers once they come in. Let's get to Africa now. A teacher in Cameroon, Elsie Yayoun is her name. She actually is planning a cocoa retirement. She bought some land not too far from her home, and she's looking at, I guess, when the cocoa seeds, when they mature in about 3 years. She's 57 now. They should mature by the time, ready for harvest by the time she's 60. She's been looking at cocoa prices, and she's saying that based on where prices are, we don't know if prices will still be high 3 years from now, but if the cocoa prices remain high, she actually is planning her retirement. Now, look at this. You know that prices are kind of capped in Ivory Coast and Ghana. So you are seeing your, 2023 as of April versus 2024, your farm gate prices for cocoa. So you're seeing Ivory Coast 2,500 for April 2024 versus 1,005 for 2023. You're seeing Ghana, look at the difference, 959 versus 2,500. But look at Cameroon and look at Nigeria. Cameroon 2,200 for 2023 in April, 8,300 for 2024. Look at Nigeria, 8,006 versus 1,004. So again, these are prices that are paid directly to the producers. There's been a supply shortage, and we know that there's been issues, and that's what has driven up the price of cocoa. And we'll have to see whether or not prices will moderate going forward. But for now, cocoa farmers are cashing in. Finally, here in Nigeria, the Artificial Intelligence Workshop is kicking off today, of course being hosted by the Ministry of Communications, Digital Economy. We had Bosun Tijani, of course, on the Global Business Report where he talked about this particular workshop. Here's what he had to say.
Beyond after, so work on the strategies already started. The people we're inviting are now working in groups virtually, shaping what they believe we should be taken into consideration under different thematic aspects of our strategy, which include things like governance, ethics, education, investment in compute power for Nigeria, and so many other things as well. So they're already working in thematic groups virtually. When they come to Abuja, the workshop we're hosting is not your typical workshop. It's not a conference. These folks are actually going to be working in breakout sessions to fine-tune all the things they've been discussing prior to the workshop. And once they finish, the output is going to be summarized and put into a single document, which we're going to share publicly for those who have not had a chance to participate, to review, and also give their feedback before it becomes a final artificial intelligence strategy for Nigeria that we will then publish.
And so that's going to be taking place from today, Monday the 15th, up until Thursday, the 18th of April. And we'll be giving you updates as we go along. And that's all from me here as far as the business segment of the morning show is concerned.
Well, thank you very much. I wrote to Sudiri there, but there was a point he was making. He said one thing about Iran. He said Iran is looking for global acknowledgement. No, I don't think that's the way to interpret what happened in the Middle East this weekend. Article 2, sub 4 of the UN Charter talks specifically about the right of nations to defend themselves. So if on April 1, Israel, although they did not acknowledge it, the Americans said, well, they were aware that it was Israel that did it, attacked Iranian consulate in Damascus. That's an act of aggression. And every country has the right to defend itself. That is further sustained under Article 51 of the UN Charter. That, look, in the face of aggression, as a state, you have the right to defend yourself. And then, of course, there's also the, what was it they taught us in this subject again? The Caroline affair, the Caroline test. So these are standard, international law provisions, on this matter. So you cannot actually blame Iran for defending its sovereignty. And in the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations, 1961, Section 22, and in the Vienna Convention on Consular Relations of 1963, Sections 31 and 32, it was made clear that the territory of a diplomatic premise or the person of a diplomatic representative who is duly accredited is inviolable. So in that regard, on April 1, Israel violated international law. So Iran defending itself, I don't agree with Rotus. They are saying Iran is seeking international attention. And it's because the allies understand these principles. That's why they are saying, people should apply calm heads, people should be careful and all of that. Because they know that in this particular case, Israel is the aggressor. And Iran also has the right under international law to defend its own sovereignty, defend its integrity, defend its dignity. So these are the issues in that particular regard. I thought I should respond to that point because I heard him say Iran is looking for attention. No, it's not about attention. It's about the province of international law.
I guess maybe perhaps one of the things that a number of people have looked at is the scale of response from Iran and the fact that there have been questions around how serious were they in terms of their reprisal attack to or response to that attack on their consulate in Damascus. A number of things happened. Whilst they have said, in local media that it was successfully hit their targets, but we saw that very largely it was in 99% fail. So they didn't quite achieve their target. So one would begin to wonder, okay, so what was it just to make a statement to demonstrate that they had, retaliated following that attack on their consulate, because it didn't quite achieve the sense on which it started off. Before it hit Israel, only about 1% of it followed. Number one was a 3-hour. The time of the drone getting to Israel was put into factor. Only a small percentage was faster than the light of sound. But every other thing was 3 hours ahead. Israel and their allies, or majorly their allies, had enough time to shoot down the missile. So technically, it was a failed mission in terms of a reprisal attack, but a statement clearly made and would provoke, as we've seen now, a response from Israel saying that they were now going to also retaliate.
Well, one of the principles in the international law of armed conflict, as it is otherwise called, is proportionality. It's about also protection of non-combatants. We have been told in this attack by Iran, who is going to determine proportionality, who is going to determine the extent. We were told one person died. In another account, we were told 12 persons died. But I think that the bigger question is about the right to self-defense. Yeah. So if Israel wants to respond, yes, they too have the right to self-defense. It's for them to determine the scale of it. Okay. And then when it happens, the world will have to deal with it.
I think one thing is certain. Except the West deals with this over-bloated baby called Benjamin Netanyahu, we will not have peace in the Middle East. And we have to say it the way it is. This over-bloated baby, that his political career was over until this attack happened. This over-bloated baby that got intelligence that Hamas was going to attack. We don't talk about that enough in our analysis. He got ample intelligence and did nothing about it.
That's the initial attack.
Initial attack on the 7th, yeah. He got ample intelligence and he did nothing about it. The wires have come out to prove that. Then now you are going ahead, dragging Iran into it by going to bomb them. And the Americans, because they don't want escalation, because we all know the historical antecedent of the Americans and the Iranians and Contra and all of that happened in the 70s, they don't want escalation. Americans and Britain and the Allies still use their own money, close to £1 billion, to defend Israel over the weekend by shooting down those rockets down. And you, Netanyahu, are not carrying sure that we will respond. How much will this hypocrisy continue?